What's up, LinkedIn family? How are y'all doing? It's your girl Ashani Mfuko. Ashani Mfuko. Not Ashanti, not Ashani. Ashani Mfuko. What's up, y'all? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching from, whether you're catching me live or you are watching the replay of this video. There's so much going on. And there's so much that I have to say about it. I've just been observing a lot. I've been, strategically watching certain news outlets, staying on top of what's happening on social media and Twitter with the Russia-Ukraine war, with Black and brown folks trying to flee Ukraine, with all the conversations that are happening, with things that are happening, here in the U.S., kind of like under the radar, because everyone's focus is on, what's going on in Ukraine, and we're missing a lot of things that are happening here. There's just so much. But I did want to come on quickly and just share some thoughts that I have about what I've been seeing, because a lot of it has been very disheartening. It's been very frustrating. And I think it's unfortunate that people don't understand that multiple things can be happening at the same time. We can hold space for multiple things at the same time. And it's been a lot. So I just wanted to, put it out there. I like to be very clear on where I stand, and to give some insight and perspective on what's going on and what I'm seeing. And also kind of like give people a reality check, because I feel like sometimes we're a little bit in denial about the realities of what's happening. So, yeah. So let me get into this. I don't have a ton of time. I do have to leave to pick up my children from school very soon. So, okay, good. I'm just checking on my phone to make sure everything is good. I'll keep track of your comments on my phone. But it's been an interesting time in the world of social media and news and media, with this Russia-Ukraine war happening, and then the way Black and brown folks have been being treated who are trying to flee the country and get to safety. I saw this post that Lisa Hurley shared recently. Did I screenshot it? I did. Finally, they're acknowledging what's happening. It says Ukraine acknowledges racist treatment of Africans fleeing Russian invasion. I'm glad that they're finally acknowledging it and recognizing it. It says that Ukraine's foreign minister said that African immigrants seeking to evacuate need to have equal opportunities to return to their home countries safely. Okay, well, the fact that even needs to be said, this is the problem, right? This is the problem. Why does that even need to be said? Shouldn't that be understood already? So here's the thing, okay? I'm not focusing this conversation on the Russia-Ukraine war. I want to talk about things that are happening in the midst of it, and things that are like interwoven in what's happening, okay? One thing that keeps coming up is this is not the time to talk about racism. So I wanted to address that, because I find it quite frustrating. And I find it quite disheartening, because if you were to ask someone, well, what's a good time to talk about racism? Their answer would be probably never, right? Because a lot of people don't want to talk about racism ever. It's never a good time, right? Oh, I'm just trying to watch a football game. Can I just enjoy the football game? Why are these people kneeling? We're in the middle of a war. This is not the time to talk about racism. Meanwhile, racism is happening in the midst of the war, okay? It's this, it's that. There's so many excuses. And the reality is racism is always happening everywhere. And as a result, it's always the right time to talk about racism, because it's always happening. When it stops happening, we'll stop talking about it, okay? That's how you'll know it's no longer happening, when we stop talking about it. But otherwise, it's always the right time to talk about racism. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think with everything that's happening with the Russia-Ukraine war, with Black and brown folks being mistreated, discriminated against, and dealing with racism as they're trying to flee the country and get to safety, do you think this is a good time to be talking about racism? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. So please feel free to post a comment below, okay? So number one, it's always a good time to talk about racism. It's always the right time to talk about racism. Another thing that keeps coming up for me, because I see people posting, on social media all the time, I don't want to be political. I don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to get into all this political stuff. And let me just be very clear. Human rights and human life are not political at all, period. I don't know who told you that. And you need to ask yourself, like, who told me that talking about human rights and human life is political? Like, where did that come from? We need to explore that. You need to explore that. So that is kind of like a code phrase. It's a code phrase for whatever the issue is. It does not affect me directly. And as a result, I don't want to talk about it because I don't really care. I'm going to use my privilege to say, I don't want to be political. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't talk about politics on social media. What you're really saying is, this issue does not affect me directly in a negative way, so I'm going to opt out and I'm not going to say anything about it. The problem with that, though, is that means you're co-signing what's happening. That means that you're saying, I know these bad things are happening. I know people are doing horrible things. I know people are being oppressed. They're being discriminated against. They're being harmed. They're being abused. But I'm not going to say anything because it does not directly affect me. That's really what you're saying. Okay? So just know that when we hear you say that, we know exactly what you really mean. Okay? So maybe just choose to come out and say that with your whole chest, that it doesn't affect me directly, therefore I don't really care. Or I don't care enough to speak up about it because I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. I don't want to upset my followers. I don't want to upset my coworkers, my family, whoever. And that's a good segue into this question of who owns your voice, right? Because oftentimes, even if you do feel strongly about something and you know it's wrong and you don't like what's happening and you see what's happening and you think that, something needs to happen to change this, like this is not okay. But then you're silent. And your silence is violence because you're aware of what's happening, but you're not saying anything about it. You're not doing anything about it. So I ask you, who owns your voice? Who controls what you talk about and what you don't talk about? Are you more concerned about keeping a bunch of followers than you are speaking against injustice and speaking up and speaking out against racism? Are you more concerned with keeping those paying clients, even though you know that if you were to speak up and speak out against injustices, whether it's a racial injustice or something else, that maybe, they would have a problem with it. So they own your voice. Your clients own your voice, or your employer owns your voice, or your followers own your voice, or your friends. And I say friends because some of y'all have some bootleg friends. Okay? Your friends are bootlegged. And what I mean by that is that if you can't have honest conversations with your friends about social justice, racial injustice, all of the issues that are happening in the world that are harming people, because you feel like, it's gonna, they're gonna be uncomfortable, or they're gonna disagree with me, and then we're gonna get into an argument, or it's gonna cause some friction or some tension. What kind of friends are those? Who wants those kind of friends? Those are not your friends, right? Who wants to work for an employer who does not create a safe space for you to speak honestly about the wrongs that are happening, about, the fact that you stand against these injustices that are happening? Why would you want to work with somebody where you can't have those honest conversations? That's a problem. So who owns your voice? You have to think about that. Because when someone says to you, well, why aren't you saying anything? Like, you're silent. Silence is violence. Silence is complicity. Silence is saying, well, I guess it doesn't affect me, so I don't really care. Is that what you really want to say? Right? And if you're not saying anything, if you're not speaking up, you're not speaking out, who owns your voice? Who are you more concerned about pleasing than speaking out against injustice? Who are you more concerned about pleasing than showing everybody what you really, truly believe, what your true values are? Okay? If you're anti-racist, if you're anti-oppression, if you're anti-war, anti-whatever, It should be known. People who know you should know that. People who follow you on social media should know that about you, right? But if you are, kind of coming back, well, I'm trying not to be too political, I don't want to go there. What's up with that? Who owns your voice? Because apparently you don't own it. Okay? So that's an issue. Now, one of the things that really concerns me is that people always push it out onto someone else, right? They're the problem. They are the issue. They should really do something about that. Okay, well, I have some bad news for you. And that is they are you. You are they. So if you say they should do something about that, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Or why aren't you doing anything about it? Now, you might say, hey, this is bigger than me. I don't control what's happening. This is outside of my pay grade. This is outside of my sphere of influence. I can't do anything about this. Well, guess what? There's always something that you can do. And even if you can't have the impact on a global level, right, or specifically in this war conflict that's happening right now in the way that you would like, there's definitely something that you can do right where you are in your country. Because there are injustices, there's oppression, there are systems of oppression happening everywhere. So maybe you can only do but this much as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned. But in your country, in your state, in your city, in your town, in your community, you can make a huge impact. You have thousands of followers on social media from all over the world. You can make a huge impact in that space. So there's always something that you can do. But saying, I don't want to be political, I don't talk politics, I don't want to go there, that's not it. That ain't it. That doesn't help anyone. And essentially you end up co-signing what's happening and saying, I'm okay with it. It doesn't affect me, so I'm okay with it, I guess. You're complicit. Your silence is violence and your silence is complicity. And we need to fix that. Okay? So that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. Remember that it's always the right time to do the right thing. It's always the right time to do the right thing. It's always the right time to speak up and speak out against any form of injustice or oppression or any isms for people in anywhere, in any part of the world. Because it's ongoing. It's ongoing. When it stops, we can stop talking about it. Plain and simple. That's what we'll stop talking about. When the injustices, when the systems of oppression, the systemic racism, all of the isms, once they go away, we don't gotta talk about it no more. But in the meantime, in between time, while they're still here and actively happening, we're gonna be talking about it in the midst of whatever, in the midst of a global pandemic, in the midst of a war, in the midst of entertainment, in the midst of whatever's happening in the world, because it's that important, okay? So keep in mind, you are supposed to own your voice. And if you feel uncomfortable because you don't want to ruffle feathers and you don't want to cause any, tension or conflict with certain folks in your life or in your circle or online, you have to really ask yourself, who owns my voice? And what's wrong with me that I don't feel confident enough to be bold about sharing and standing on what my values are and what I believe, and standing firm against oppression and standing firm against injustices wherever they're happening and to whoever they're happening, right? Whomever it is, especially when it's someone that does not look like you. Okay? So that's my challenge for you today. Figure out who owns your voice. Be honest with yourself. Keep it real with yourself. Okay? Don't be in denial about that. And know that it's always the right time to do the right thing. It's always the right time to talk about racism. It's always the right time to stand up against any form of injustice or oppression against anyone. Period. Being political is an excuse. And human rights and human life is not political. Period. Under any circumstances, full stop. Okay? So I wanted to put that out there, challenge you today to do better. To do better. right? And if you feel like, oh, I'm not equipped to have these conversations, I'm not equipped to be talking about this, I'm not comfortable with it, then you need to get some support and you need to get some accountability. And I am here for you. I am here to help you with that. You can join my 21 Days of Anti-Racism Challenge. You can join my Patreon community. You can connect with me and we can connect one-on-one. I'm launching a new online course, online program later this month called Who Owns Your Voice? Okay, because I want to empower you to become an anti-racist leader and figure out how you can walk boldly and stand firm on your values in everything that you do, everywhere you show up, so people know what time it is. They know what time it is. They know who they're getting. They know what they're getting when you're in the room. Okay, so look out for that. Look out for information about that. And also, again, if you want to sign up for my 21 Days of Anti-Racism Challenge, you can do that. I'll put the link in the comments below. Let me know what your number one takeaway is from what I shared today, and what your thoughts are on all of this. I would love to hear from you. Again, I have to run to go pick up my children from school, but I wanted to put this out there so that we can start a conversation about it, because I feel like it's really important. And what I'm seeing happening online on social media is just very, very disheartening. So I wanted to be bold and speak out and be clear about where I stand with all of this, okay? So thank you for watching. Thanks for joining. Post a comment below. Share the video if what I shared resonated with you. And I will talk to you all very soon. Have a blessed day and take care. Bye-bye.